All right, we've got multiple cameras, so we'll start with this one. Don't cut yet, whatever you do. All right, everyone look right here. Nice smiles. Here we go. We rattle off a couple more. All right, go ahead. Open them up.
Good charge.
Good. I think we maybe a countdown.
Okay, I gotta get on a ribbon. From which number?
3.
Wait a second, wait. I'm just getting like, okay, I got you.
All right, Nicole, lead the way.
3, 2, 1, cut! Oh man, that's right.
Gosh, I feel like I'm a celebrity now.
Sorry. All righty. Everybody look right here. Nice smiles. If you can't see the camera lens, get on your tippy toes and back. I see Bonnie way back in there. Let me double check. Perfect. And the countdown again. 3, 2, 1.
We're not as big.
Erickson, and I am the president of Community Homeless Solutions, and it is absolutely my pleasure that you have joined us today. It's amazing to see what has happened in 40 years of this organization and how it has evolved. I know that you probably have had a chance to look around at the various program things that are there, but I wanted to give you just a little bit more history of where we have come from. In 1978, which is that 40-year mark, Shelter Plus started their first shelter in Monterey County that was a safe and secure place for victims of domestic violence. The program was the forerunner of the Natividad Family Shelter, which we continue to run to this day. 6 years later, in Seaside, an organization called Peninsula Outreach started a food service for the homeless and also low-income families. And they also at that time started the iHelp program, which continues now to work under the faith-based community, and also Hamilton House, which was another domestic violence shelter. In '92, after Fort Ord closed, there were several organizations that wanted to band together. I know, I'm making noise over here. Wanted to band together to try to provide services for the homeless, but also to try to get some of that land, that even a lot of it that's still sitting vacant out there, and do something with it for the community. That became the collaboration that was the Coalition for the Homeless Services Providers. And we, as Shelter Plus and Peninsula Outreach, were founding members. So what happened after that? In '98, those two organizations joined together and became Shelter Outreach Plus. And for many years, that was the name that people knew, along with iHelp. And I have to confess that when I first moved here, I knew iHelp because my church was involved, but I didn't know that there was a Shelter Outreach Plus. So it opened my eyes along the way. So we are continuing to open eyes about that. In 2015, we decided as a board to change the name of our agency to Community Homeless Solutions to more accurately reflect our involvement in all of the community in Monterey County, and now extending slightly into the San Benito County area too. And so we look at ourselves as an umbrella of services that we provide and have that ability to touch a lot of different places in this community. We now have managed programs including domestic violence shelters, our outreach on the street called MOST, you may have seen our vans out there. We have transitional housing programs for women and children, for single women and for single men, as well as intact families. And then we also continue to do a warming shelter or a overnight shelter in the Salinas area, and then also have expanded to Hollister for San Benito County this year too. So multiplicity of services, there's a lot of things we do, and we're very happy that you could be here with us today. I would like to introduce to you our Honorable Luis Alejo, who is from the Monterey County Board of Supervisors. Mr. Alejo is the son of migrant farm workers whose grandparents started the founding families to join the farm worker rights, labor leader with Cesar Chavez in 1970. He's an honors graduate of UC Berkeley, a graduate of UC Davis School of Law, and holds a master's in education from Harvard. He's been a longtime champion for the poor and the underserved, and that certainly is a way that he expresses himself in what he does. He entered public service as a mayor and a vice mayor, and then went on to be a state assemblyman. And now he was elected to the Monterey County Board of Supervisors in June of 2016, and represents most of the city of Salinas, including Chinatown. He serves as the chair of the Monterey County Board of Supervisors and is on various committees. And let me introduce to you the Honorable Luis Alejo.
Thank you, everyone. How's everybody doing today? All right, thank you. Thank you for this great turnout for the celebration of 40 great decades of serving the community. I'm really honored to be here because many of us really believe in the work that all of you do, whether you're staff, whether you're members of the board, whether you're other nonprofit organizations, or just supporters who believe in the work in community housing solutions. For us, we really need a lot more champions like all of you. Those of us who are in elected office can only do so much, but we're able to be more effective when we have a groundswell of community support to push just issues forward. When I finished all my education, there was a lot of good opportunities. I could have gone, worked in the Bay Area, gone and worked at a prestigious law firm, but I was one of those young people who said we needed to come back. We needed to use our education, our experiences and networks, and I came back to my small rural hometown of Watsonville. And long before I was in politics, my first job was working for Legal Aid, a California rural legal assistant serving the poor, working on landlord-tenant issues, public benefits, education law, voting and civil rights, wage and hour issues where people were not even getting paid the minimum wage. And it really reminded me what you could do as a young person coming back to use your education to solve a lot of problems in your community. I came to Monterey County because I was the first staff attorney hired at the Self-Help Center, assisting self-represented litigants at the Monterey courthouse, the Capito courthouse, helping people who are trying to navigate through the courts without any legal help. And this was primarily in family law, but again, we were doing tenant, small claims, but we were able to help 25,000 people every year with 2 attorneys, a paralegal, and a court clerk. So that was my 8 years of law practice before I started in politics. But that was the foundation of what I believe in and I work in. Last night we had a big community forum. One of the big issues was homelessness with the Creek Bridge residents. And I told them that many of us come into politics because we really want to make a difference. And we don't do it alone, we work with a lot of great people. But who we are and our experience shape what values we have. And when I grew up, I told them last night, my father was a longtime minister. We did a lot of missionary work for 5 years on the border areas in northern Mexico and southern Texas. And as a son of a preacher, they made us do a lot of work. But at every time we got to the table, we had food on our table, we had shelter over our heads. My father, to this day, I just took him back to the Monterey airport because he's going back to Phoenix to go back to the 117-degree temperatures over there. Too hot. And I'm telling him to come back to this way. But even to this day, every prayer at the table, it's about praying for those less fortunate, those that don't have food, those who are homeless. Every day, every single prayer. My father always reminds us because by the grace of God go many of us. And many Californians are only a paycheck away of being homeless. So it's always good to remind our residents that could be any of us. Thank God we've had some better blessings, but there's those in our community that really need that little lift up, that additional help. And there was a quote, I remember somebody saying that there's many things beyond our control. We cannot predict and control an earthquake, a major storm, a drought. But when we find somebody who's hungry or who was homeless, that is where each and every one of us can make a difference. And we have to remind ourselves the power of being concerned community residents. My grandfather, who only went to the 3rd grade in Mexico, and my grandmother, who never went to school at all, I tell them about the story how they came here, worked so hard, and they become part of the farm worker rights movement, because my grandfather, although he had, and my grandparents had very little opportunity to in school, they had a consciousness, you know. They had a conscience of helping the fellow man and woman and the community. And when I grew up, he taught us that education was important not only to help our own lives, but he said it was more important to help other people in your community. And so now as an elected official, I really felt I carry that obligation, that responsibility. A lot of people helped me get to where I am at, and I feel it's my obligation to do the same. But as elected officials, sometimes they talk about your degrees and your years in office, but you also have to talk about humility, you have to talk about compassion, you have to talk about values of treating people with respect and dignity. These are important values, I think, that make us better elected officials. And to also recognize that we don't do this work alone. I came here because I know there's a lot of important work that Community Housing Solutions is doing. And a year ago, or a year and a half ago, when we talked about issues of homelessness, Reyes and the whole team were there talking about keeping a shelter open. And it was hurtful to see some of the statements made about our homeless residents. But I think in that time, we've worked together. We've kind of trekked along, we've looked for locations, we've talked about providing services at a little better level, more responsive to the community. And I think conversations have come a long way in just a short amount of time, but there's a lot more work to do. And as the chair of the Board of Supervisors this year, I'm really proud to represent one of the most beautiful counties in California and in the world. We have beautiful coastline, we have some tourist destinations like Cannery Row, we have some of the richest agricultural fields. If you go down to Salinas Valley, I just have to stop sometimes and look at the Santa Lucia Islands and look at the lettuce fields, look at those workers, and I say, what a beautiful place we represent. But there is a disparity in income. There's those that are doing very well, and there's those that are really struggling to get by. And I always say the greatest measure of any society is how we treat our most vulnerable, how we treat our poor, how we treat our homeless. Because when we lift them up, when we lift up those who are struggling the most, we lift up everyone in this great state of California. And so, as the chair this year, I really try to make addressing homelessness and dealing with affordable housing as my #1 issue. There's a lot of great issues we got to deal with, but as the chair for 1 year, I said if there's going to be one issue I really want to focus on, it's addressing homelessness and affordable housing. And luckily, the good thing is that around the same time, conversations were also happening in places like Sacramento. And we were able to get the legislature to approve a package of 15 bills to move housing further along. We have an emergency housing fund that's coming to local governments, $500 million, and it's going to be expedited. So we hope to get some of that money by late January, hopefully, and then we could create better and stronger collaborations with Community Housing Solutions and other providers here in the area, and working with other local governments, working with San Benito County, because we're in the same continuum of care. And also, there's a affordable housing bond. Well, 2 issues. There's a No Place Like Home, which is a $2 billion bond to provide more housing infrastructure with mental health services for the homeless. That needed to go back to the ballot because the legislature tried to do it alone, but the court said no. If you're going to make the change, it has to go back to the voters. So that's going to be on the ballot. I think that's Prop 2. And then there's the affordable housing bond, $4 billion for more affordable housing. That's something that each and every one of us could support, could get behind. $3 billion for affordable housing, but $1 billion for veterans housing as well. So when we talk about really having resources to not just talk and have some great ideas, but now for local governments in partnership with our nonprofit providers to really move those great ideas forward and make them into reality, I think it's an exciting time. But like I said, it's not enough to just have us in this room. We need more homelessness champions, because the more of us that are out there, I think the stronger, the more respectful and compassionate way we talk about these issues in our community. Because trust me, in my short time, a year and a half as a supervisor, people want us to come up with solutions, but when you start talking, where do we provide the services, you get a lot of pushback, you know? And so we gotta say, we can do things right, in a dignified way, successful, and we wanna be those model examples in the state of California. But beyond that, I just wanted to come and on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, I have a resolution to present because it is 40 good years. And I really want to thank all the staff at our temporary shelter for the county. Those are the folks I've been able to watch more closely because it's only like a block and a half from my office, right across the street from Congressman Jimmy Panetta's office. You know, but last night at Creek Bridge, this morning in front of the Community Alliance for Safety and Peace, I was able to talk about the successful work at the shelter. And we had some lessons learned, we made some adjustments, and I think it's been a model example. It's at capacity. We had for a while up to 20, 21 children staying there from the ages of 8 to 13, mostly young girls. And I had a chance to walk the shelter and be able to see folks and talk and hear their stories. And last night at the Creek Bridge meeting, I told people, when you take the time to talk and shake the hands of somebody who's facing homelessness, you hear that you can't just make generalizations. You can't make stereotypes. Everybody's in a different situation. And in my times visiting Chinatown and going to the shelter, you find people in a lot of situations. I met a senior who had housing for 30 years on a fixed income, but when they raised that rent, she found herself temporarily homeless. I talked to single moms with children, a mom with 3 young girls having to stay at the shelter, trying to get back on their feet again. I had somebody who had a young infant, and I had to get county staff to help me out because I said that we cannot put a 3-month-old baby out on the street. So there's been a lot of folks in a lot of different situations. So I had to explain to community residents that when you start talking about this issue, it's complex and everybody's in a different situation. But for me, as the chair of the board, I really want to thank Community Housing Solutions, your leadership, the board's leadership, because you guys have carried out your duties with a lot of respect for our residents. And so at our last meeting, because we don't have a County Board of Supervisors meeting until August 28th again, but we passed this resolution to honor your work and your legacy, and we hope that you continue for at least another 40 years because we really need partners like you to do this tremendous work. This resolution just says Community Housing Solutions has been Monterey County's primary provider of emergency shelter and support services for those fleeing domestic violence, homeless individuals, and families since 1978. They have successfully impacted the community by helping those in crisis move forward with stable, independent living and creating opportunities for self-sufficiency and independence. They work with local organizations, coalitions, and leaders to help shape policies affecting victims of domestic violence and people experiencing homelessness. And they also strive to inform and educate the public and encourage support for homelessness and domestic violence services. Community Housing Solutions strives to meet the needs of the homeless population through mobile services, dedicated day services for women, and recuperative post-hospitalization care. They've also provided 4 decades of sustainable programs for families, single parents, children, individuals in Monterey County. So therefore, the Monterey County Board of Supervisors, on behalf of the county and all its citizens, hereby takes great pleasure in recognizing Community Homeless Solutions for 40 years of tremendous service to the people and communities of Monterey County. And I'll present this to Board Chair and to our Director here. Give a big round of applause, everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations, everybody.
Thank you so much. You know, one of the things that you said is everybody has a story, and I think you all know that if you've touched anyone's lives that have been involved in domestic violence or homelessness, because the stories are there. We love that. I'd like to introduce you now Mr. Dan Baldwin, who is the President and CEO of the Monterey, the Community Foundation of Monterey County, and has been for the last 8 years. And he's been involved in that kind of work for quite some time, and I thought it was very interesting that you spent 15 years as a museum professional.
That's correct.
That's great. So now he's building a museum here in Monterey County. So thank you for your passionate care about nonprofit organizations and for the things that the foundation has done for us.
Something just got explained to me today, just in the last 10 minutes. Luis Alejo's father was a minister, so everything's coming together now. Well done. Those are really great remarks. Thank you. So I'm pleased to be here, always as an advocate for the nonprofit community, to celebrate 40 years of tremendous work by an organization. And this is an organization not only doing great work and has done it now for 4 decades, but doing critical work. helping some of those vulnerable people in our community. And I don't know that there's a higher calling that any of us could aspire to in doing that. I want to give just a couple data points. Before I came over, I looked up our grant history with Community Homeless Solutions. Pleased to report that last year we passed the $1 million mark of grants to your organization. Looking forward to taking that towards $2 million. We also have a relationship with the organization called the Stewardship Fund, where they very happily have accumulated some reserves so that they don't always have to be going week to week, month to month, and we partner with them in investing some of that money on their behalf. So Luis and I are on the what's called the Leadership Council. Luis chairs it. He's doing a tremendous job. And in the Leadership Council is there as part of a HUD mandate to work with homelessness in Monterey County and oversee what's called the 10-year plan. And I got personally involved with the, bringing the Community Foundation, very involved about 3 years ago, called together a lot of individuals and county and nonprofit people to really talk about homelessness, and we had just the obvious problem that's still there of Chinatown, and asking ourselves how something like this could exist in such an environment of prosperity. And that's where I really began to learn a lot more about the complexities of this issue, and how we have, you have government entities, you have government money, you have private philanthropy, you have nonprofits, you have all these different entities trying to work together to solve what is a tremendous problem. I also got a good look through that process at the entrepreneurial approach that Reyes brings to this. I think we're all very fortunate. It's been probably 5 years now that you've been here. 6 years. Wow. They say that about me too. They say 8. So Reyes has been a game changer, and the organization has really been able to do a lot more. There are a lot of policies and things that help define what we can do and what organizations that receive government money can do. And at times, they like the money, but at times it can be very inhibited and really put some boundaries around what you're able to do. Well, this organization has worked to very creatively go beyond those boundaries, not in a way that gets them in trouble, but to think about partnerships and to think about using philanthropy, and it's just, again, to really bring an entrepreneurial approach. I'm actually reading a manuscript right now. I've been asked to write the introduction for a book for somebody who it describes his personal journey in becoming aware of homelessness, particularly homeless women on the peninsula. And it's framed around all the homeless women who have died. And when you read these little scenarios that are kind of dispassionate, and it just gives you age and their circumstance, and it's very easy to understand that there's a large part of our population that drives around, walks around, steps around the evidence of people struggling right in front of them. And I think there is a mindset that we all can work on to change that, so that we can all work together going forward. I just want to close by saying that one of the things that, particularly as Community Homeless Solutions and Reyes have stepped forward to help with the warming shelter that the County of Monterey and the City of Salinas have partnered on, and some of those locations and what happens, around some of the activity around those shelters, and what's going on with people being fed in downtown and where they migrate to. And Luis is right. The characterizations of people that are really struggling chronically, whether because of financial circumstances or mental health or addiction problems. And the way that we're stigmatizing people, for a lot of whom are just challenged. They're struggling, they're struggling, they're struggling. And then that begins to make it even more difficult for organizations like Community Homeless Solutions to provide services. So one of the lessons I've learned is how hard it is to do good. And I think that what you all represent, what Community Homeless Services represent, is a fearlessness in the face of those difficulties. And you've been doing it for 40 years, and congratulations, and we look forward to another 40 years. But maybe 40 years from now, you'll have worked yourself out of a job. So congratulations, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Dan, and for the wonderful kindness that is brought to us through your organization too. This wouldn't be the day that it is if we weren't able to share some of our folks with you. And the stories that we have heard of success and people that have been through our programs and have come out on the other side bring you to tears. And so we actually have a couple of people here today who want to let you know how important being involved with Community Homeless Solutions has been. It's my pleasure to introduce to you Sarah Turner, who is currently in our Homeward Bound program, but is exiting soon. And exiting is meaning we're going to somewhere better, right? and she's actually raising grandchildren.
Hi, thank you. My name's Sarah, and I've been at Homeless Community Solutions for about 20 months now. And hopefully by the 10th of the month I'll be in my own home. I've already signed the lease. My oldest granddaughter started school today in Salinas, and she was very overwhelmed when she got there and saw how many kids were in Washington Junior High. 1,300 students started there today, 7th and 8th graders. So we'll see how that went when I get home. But it's been a struggle, but we're coming out on the other side. To take you back, we got there by my grandkids' mother not doing what she should have been doing, is being their mother. And she was doing her own thing and into an addiction, and so I took the kids from her. And she came back to stay with us, and we ended up losing our house because they did not want her or her group of people there. So we were asked to leave. And instead of her just leaving, we all had to leave, and that put us out on the street. The first couple of nights we stayed in a motel, and we just wondered what we were going to do next, and I didn't want anything to happen to my grandkids. At that time I think they were 5, 7, and 9, or now they're 8, 10, and 11. Yeah. And after about a year of being out, just staying wherever we could stay, and I had the 3 kids, and getting them to school was a challenge, and making it on time was a challenge, I finally decided to go into the homeless shelter in Salinas, and that was the best thing I could have done, because that gave us the stability to start putting that foundation back under my feet. I went to work, got a job, and from there we moved out to Fort Ord to Homeward Bound, where we are now. And I can't say enough good things about that program. The staff is wonderful. They give you the time you need to get on your feet. They give you whatever you need. They're there trying to help you. They'll offer you, they won't tell you what to do, but they'll give you suggestions. So I can't say enough about the staff. It's been a journey. Daycare is probably one of the biggest things I face. I paid anywhere $900 a month during summertime for kids, which is crazy. I mean, there's daycare out there, help if you have newborns, but not for older children. I've been on a waiting list now for 3 years. By the time I get there, they'll be grown. But we're just going to take it. I don't want to dwell in the past because I'm looking forward to the future. And we have the stability now. We have our tools. We have our foundation set. I have some money saved up. So we're just going to go forward and see where life takes us. I mean, my job's good, so life's good.
enthusiastic participant there, so thank you. The next individual is actually a graduate of our program, mid in transition, and he was in the program in 2015, and he did so well that we asked him to work with our program as a program monitor. So Marty Cruz, we're happy to welcome you.
Wow, 1978, I wasn't even born yet. We were just talking about that. So, first of all, thank you for having me. Congratulations on 40 years. Just to be a little bit honest with you, I've been kind of just thinking over some things to share about. You know, we just got back from vacation. I don't know what day, it's been that long. I've been painting all night last night. So on, no, we gotta tell the story. When did we get back from vacation, seriously?
We came back on Friday.
Saturday and Sunday church, okay, so
This
we're back on
last
track,
Friday we
okay.
came back.
It's been a long week, and so with me saying that, I've been thinking about things to share, and because there's so much I want to share and talk about, okay, but with so little time. And so I'm literally jotting down some notes, and I had to rip it off my little, I go to church, we have a little prayer list, and have a little part that says sermon notes, and I'm writing, I'm like, you know what, let me put that away, because I might start preaching. No, and so, all seriousness, I jotted some things down, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to tell my story. And so, just to give you a little history, my father was, he served in the military, he was a 5th Special Forces Green Beret, stationed out here in Fort Ord. I am 37 years old, going on 38 November, so I've been out here for a long time. I really never dibbled and dabbled in like drugs and alcohol, maybe once in high school. But it wasn't until after high school, a little bit of summertime, it was like kind of on and off. And then we're just to move forward, where it really started getting me was around 2012. I ended up crystal meth. I was weighing about 120 pounds at least. I gained a little bit of weight since. And I was doing everything under the sun that was wrong, immoral, anything you name it, I've probably done, and just to get a hold of drugs. I ended up going out to Utah, because I had a pastor out there, and I was there for a while. I got clean for about 5 months. I ended up getting back on drugs, came back out here. So the opportunity came for me to go to Genesis House, and so I ended up at Genesis House. And while being there, again, and let me just share this thing too. I've never paid for rent, okay, ever. And I don't know nothing about rent, didn't know anything about the time. I'm in my 30s. I'm at Genesis House, and I was going to be there for 3 months, but something told me just to stick it out. And I know it's the Lord telling me, wait it out 6 months. Okay, just wait it out 6 more months. And so I stood my ground, I stayed there. And so you guys know how much rent is in Marina. It's ridiculous. It's like way up there. And so for someone who's never paid for rent, I'm thinking like, how in the world am I going to survive? There's no way. Well, Miss Soto showed up at Genesis House and told me about men in transitions. And I'm thinking like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, this is unreal. I'm not kidding you. I've never paid for rent. So for me, I was like, there's no way. Like, how long has this been here for? And so I was like, I gotta get to this place. And so I had the opportunity to go into men in transitions. And while being there, one thing for me was, learning how to save, learning how to manage your money, learning how to search for homes, which that was always kind of a struggle for me because I can't stand applications. But the thing is, the staff was great. You know why? Because they were very, they did their job, they loved their job, and they stood their ground. And so that's one thing, the accountability for me was good. I needed that support. And so with Mr. Rice, Yolanda, Mr. Reyes, Ms. Soto, and Mr. Rodrigo, if anybody I forgot, I'm sorry. But with that being said, me being there, and this big deal, teaching me responsibilities. It was a big deal for me. To pay rent, I'm like, I worked hard, and then hand my money over for rent. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of money. That's crazy. Okay, so this is what life is about. Yeah. Really? I was like, okay, that's good. So I learned that. Like, for me to learn that at the age of 30, I should have learned that a long time ago. But for me, that was a big deal. I had to learn that. That was key. And being responsible with my money and paying the rent like everybody else does. So after, I'm gonna move forward. after a couple years being there, the opportunity came up to be a night monitor. And I'll tell you what, every time you see me around, they would, oh, here comes Marty. Hey, don't do this, don't do that. Because you know what it's about? It's about integrity. You got to do the right thing when no one's looking. And for me, like, if they were asking me to do that, I have to do that. Because you know what? I might be able to hide it from other people, but I can't hide it from God. So I've got to report anything I hear, anything I see, and then try to be an encouragement the best way I could. So after being there a night monitor, my wife who actually met, we were friends. I actually met while I was at Genesis. I was at Genesis' house. She was not at Genesis at the moment. I was on a pass and I met her. She was actually outside of a church. We met. I was looking for a daily bread. And we knew each other there. She ended up there at Genesis' house. We stayed friends for about 3 years. The 4th year we dated. And then the 5th year we ended up getting married. And so we actually had our 1-year anniversary on the 29th. And here's something else. The day I ended up in Genesis' house was on May 15th. And that's the day, and the day where she got rescued from was on May 15th. We did not know each other. We did not know each other. Okay. So the work that God was doing in her life was doing in my life and brought us together. So now, after getting married, and we're actually on Section 8, we just turned our 30-day notice in practically almost 30 days ago. And so we were about to rent a house in Marina. And so no more Section 8. But the support that we had and just learning learning to depend on God, learning to work hard. But you know what, for us, where we're at now is it's exciting. Because, you know, like, this is what it's about, community homeless solutions. Help us to get on our feet so we can do it on our own. You know, and that's what it's about. I was there. I am living proof of it. I'm not going to hide it, but that's what it was. And so we are right now on August 13th. We're going to be finalizing adopting. I'm actually going to be adopting Maya, my son Zachariah. And so, with that being said, I want to share this because one thing I want to emphasize is I wish you guys knew and wish you guys had grasped the fact that how part of a journey, like how big of a part you guys played in my path. Because you know what, like, think about this. I wouldn't be here today. I met my wife. The timing of it. I'm about to adopt my children. We're now serving in our church in our church in Marina, which we also now. Our church bus comes through that community, through Preston, comes through picking up all these kids in broken homes and kids without children, you know, so I mean, kids without parents. And you know, like, it's a pretty neat thing to be where I was at in transition to now in that neighborhood and picking up these kids and families. You know, and it's a way of giving back, and I know God's using on my family to serve Him, to bring Him glory. And so God has used community homeless solutions, open up that door to where I am today. And so think about the impact that you guys made. Think about the impact that you guys are making on all these children across Marina. Seriously, we pick up a lot of kids, and hear me, I'm going to end it with this. I was one of those bus kids at my church. I went to preschool in my church. I used to be the kids that throw Skittles at kids and put staples under the seats and when they say, all that stuff. I was one of those kids, but God transformed my life. And so, what you guys are doing, keep doing, because it impacted my life. You know, we came up on 5 years clean, but I know it's by the grace of God what He did in my life, and using you guys gotta keep going, keep doing it, because it makes, even if it takes one person. I know there's a lot that fall off, but you know what? If it's gonna take that one person, it's gonna impact many. And that's what you guys keep doing. So thank you, congratulations again. Praise the Lord.
Marty's not at all enthusiastic. So. Thank you so much. And what a great success story. And there are many, many more that we have had just like that. And so that's just a glimpse into what we are able to accomplish because of the resources that we have. So it's time now to introduce our executive director to you, Reyes Bonilla. Reyes has been with us for 6 years. It's not 8 yet, but we're getting there. And he has worked in the past with abused and neglected children, came to us from up in the Sacramento area, and has just been there to help see us through a lot of new programs, a lot of new things. We have actually just sort of exploded and expanded over about the last 3 years, and so he has been at the helm through that, and so Reyes, give us a word.
Thank you, Teresa. It feels like 40 years. 6 years, yes. Thinking about what I want to say, there's so many things where I want to highlight. But one of the things someone close to me advised me is always thank those that work with you. Always thank those that serve with you. Thank those that feed you, meaning fund you. Okay? And those that serve but don't get paid and volunteer and put all these hours in to see people like Marty, Sarah, and many other hundreds of people who have gone through our programs. So today, that's going to be my focus. But before I stay and thank you all that are here today, thus far in 2017 data shows that 82% of those who exited our transitional housing programs gained access to permanent housing. 82%. Despite the challenges, what Dan was talking about, because there have been many challenges with regulations through the federal government, many, when it comes to shelters and comes to transitional housing. But despite that, staff have been creative, staff committing to making sure that we're able to ensure a better tomorrow for those that we serve. So I want to thank personally the following people. I know all our staff are not here, but those who are not here, we thank them too. But let me start with Yolanda Talamante. She got sick, she's not here today. She sees our Most Outreach street program. She's phenomenal. She's the guru of HMIS, and HMIS is so important because funders want to see our numbers, they want to see data, they want to see evidence. So she's the person to go to with those programs, HMIS. Today, Jesse Armenta, who's here, who's running Salinas Warming Shelter. He's been doing it for the last 3 years, so thank you, Jesse. I want to thank him and his staff. I want to thank Christina Soto. In San Benito County, we opened up our year-round shelter. That started in December of 2017. We're in a one-year grant. We're hoping to renew that so that we can continue to provide year-round shelter in San Benito County. Christina Soto is our shelter manager. I want to thank her and her staff. In 2015, we started our respite care program, basically led by who was formerly our board president, Eric Johnson. We were able to get that with our board members and our staff. So Valerie Garcia Martinez, she's that manager, she's our Central Coast Respite Care Program. We've been in operation now going into the 3rd year, so I want to thank her and her staff. A newbie, so she's new to our program, but she's not new to the field. She's been doing this for so many years. Helen Childers, who is our shelter manager, is basically seeing Natividad, Hamilton, which are emergency domestic violence shelters. So I want to thank her and her staff for doing very good work. Our largest programs, transitional housing, we have 4. Women in transition, we have men in transition, we have intact families. Now it's being combined with our Homeward Bound program, which serves single women with children. Those programs are being combined. And Sari Soto oversees that as the director of that program. We also have our executive staff, Lisa Longo, who just came back last week. She's basically taken off on doing this stuff for administration and finance. So we want to thank her and thank her with Lydia today, who have helped and assisted with making making sure we had everything for you all today. Rodrigo Torres, like I was telling a couple of people today, money comes in because he writes our grants and he does a phenomenal job, but he also oversees programs and operations, so I want to thank him. for the work he does for us too. I'd like to thank the board of directors. I want to say a couple of things about Eric Johnson, who was my first board president. Eric, we go back 6 years ago. I was hired and he met with me, and one of the first things he says, we got to get our finances in place, we got to get money in here, and we got a lot of work to do. When I first heard that, I said, okay, I can handle it. This will be easy. It wasn't as easy as I thought. But as Dan has said, Teresa has said, we have significantly expanded our programs and our services in Monterey County, going into also San Benito County. We were about 6 programs back when I first got here. We're at 11 programs, including Casa de Paz. So 11 programs, going from 6 to 11, meaning what does that come? Yes, money, but also challenges. But more importantly, as Luis has said and as Dan has touched today, and as you saw as evidence, those that we're serving, those that we're working with, those that we're ministering to, and the impact. 82% is a great number. It sounds great, but when you see them leave and they have a place to go to, they got a key, they got a lease, it's phenomenal. It's great. It's impacting. Okay. So Eric, I wanna thank you for being a good support and for being there. It hasn't been easy, but you've taught me a lot, and I've learned a lot from you, and I continue to learn a lot from you. One thing I will say about Eric, he's optimistic. He talks about these things, and early on I thought, man, he wants a lot. He wants many things. How am I going to accomplish these things? But he's been a great support. I want to thank you, Eric. My boss now, board president, Teresa Erickson. Teresa's been an exec director. She's been an administrator. So she can relate to a lot of things that as an executive director you go through. But she's been very supportive. It's not always easy for everyone to be happy and to please everybody, staff, board members, our funders, community members, our clients. But she's been very supportive, and I appreciate that, and I thank her for that. She's also taught me a lot. And let me share one thing, Teresa, and I don't think I've ever said it to you personally, but I'll say it in public today. It's not bad. Thank you. You're an example to me. I appreciate that. I don't have to say much, but just your confidence, your wanting to help others has taught me to stop complaining about the challenges of the clients that we have that have not been easy to work with, that have helped us to be more creative, to be able to go beyond and look and think outside the box. So thank you for that. Shirley Dickinson, our secretary. She and Teresa don't get paid, but they help us as we bring in clients to respite care program. It wouldn't be easy if it wasn't for them to help us and assist Valerie and our staff. So I want to thank Shirley Dickinson, Dr. Dickinson. Jason's not here, our treasurer. I want to thank him. Cheryl said that I have to thank her because she was the one that made the final decision to hire me. So thank you, Cheryl. I appreciate you. I love you. Thank you for all that you do.
So Cheryl who?
Hamony.
Okay.
Yes. Sorry, Cheryl. I thought we all know you. She's great, and she's an advocate, as Luis and everybody who has spoken and everybody that's here of homeless services and to homeless families. I would like to also thank Dan Baldwin. Dan and I go back, 6 years ago, and he's absolutely right. They have been great to us, the Community Foundation for Monterey County, the Fund for Homeless Women, Michael Reed and his people. We've been able to keep open We opened a new program in 2015 specifically for women in this area, in the peninsula, and it's Women in Transition program, 12 beds. And if it wasn't for their funding each year, it'd be a challenge. And so I want to thank them and Michael Reed, who's not here today, with the Fund for Homeless Women. They have given us and helped us not only through finances, but all these other services that they provide to nonprofits. And Dan is a big supporter of homeless programs, of nonprofits, like he said, but more importantly, he's a champion of doing the right to people, and I appreciate that. Director Reyes is not here today. He was here earlier, but I believe he's gone. He's a program officer of the David and Lucille Packard Foundation. He's a great supporter. He always wants to get news. What's going on? What's new? How are you doing? And so we're submitting an application to them to hope to get some funding so that we can expand our marketing and fundraising efforts and fund development within the agency. So we're submitting that. Hopefully we get funded. As you can see today, Alex Ortiz who's here and Tracy Love, who have helped us to make this happen. But I'll thank them at the end. So, but again, we're seeking funding. Cheryl Chan couldn't make it today, program officer of Sunlight Giving Foundation. 2 years ago, she came to see one of our programs, and she was so impressed with Hamilton House. She said, "Well, we could probably give you $50,000." Well, they doubled that for 3 years, and so I appreciate that because that money is really impacting, as you will see, Lisa, Natividad, and Hamilton. So I want to thank her. Mary Gunn, Director of Philanthropy of the Monterey Peninsula. I didn't see Mary, but they continue to fund us so that we can continue to provide services. Michael Reed, as I said earlier, great supporter of the homeless, specifically homeless women. Elliot Robinson, who's going to be retiring this month, to be exact. I want to thank him as the Director of Monterey County Department of Social Services. One of our former staff said, if you ever need help, and if you ever need money, go to Elliot. So Elliot has made it happen when we provide a lot of services in Monterey County, but he's got a great board of supervisors, so he's been able to help us. Anastasia is not here. Wyatt, with the planning manager, Cena Salinas, they're providing us funding for our warming shelter and our year-round shelter in San Benito. Luis, thank you. When I hear Luis speak, when I hear him at hearings or board of supervisor meetings or in front of the public, he's got a true heart, a real heart. He's a true believer of what he says, of the discipleship, of ministering, of really helping. And so he has made it happen despite the challenges of funding and the cuts that Monterey County will see, that has seen. As he said, and as Dan has said, we make it happen one way or another. That's our job. We're community homeless, at the end, solutions. And so he's a champion of that effort. He's a leader of the Monterey County. And not only as a board of supervisor, he's been an assemblyman. I almost called him governor, so I don't know if he ever for governor, but I appreciate him, as I appreciate Dan, and all the foundations that are supporting us, and all the public officials. Thank you, Luis. Appreciate you, man. I'd like to also mention, point out, Mike Evans is right over there. Mike and I met right when we were starting our San Benito shelter. Mike's the director of forward planning with the Nova Homes. They're going to start some projects. They're hoping to open up a nonprofit. We need housing. It's needed. There's a lot of people still on the streets. We're not here to take all the rec. We work with Mike. We appreciate Mike. They've been funding. They've been helping the efforts in San Benito. So I want to thank you, Mike. And we're most definitely wanting to work with you so we can, continue this kind of work. So thank you, Mike. Our speakers, they forgot to say a few things, so I want to add some things to their speech. Marty, back a couple years ago, when he first started, I heard these things, but I wasn't convinced. I wasn't convinced that he would change. I wasn't convinced that what he was saying, but I saw it. I mean, when you think about change, I'm thinking about transformation, and Marty transformed. He's a whole different person. Not all community homeless solutions. He's a believer of the Lord, and he's a believer of himself. Yes, we assisted. Yes, we did help. Yes, we were a guide. Yes, we were on him. Yes, we held him accountable. We made sure he paid his rent. One of the questions I asked him when I interviewed him, I said, "Did you pay rent every month if I'm going to hire you?" And he did. But he's come a long way. And then him now with his family, his lovely family, you're awesome, man. I appreciate you. When we had problems and crisis situations over on Lexington Court, and Marty would call me, I was comfortable. I was at peace because I knew that when Marty's there, we would be able to resolve whatever situation, and we did. So thank you. Sir, you forgot some things. Let me say this. Sarah is a grandma of 3 beautiful grandchildren. She has a daughter. She forgot to mention. Well, she mentioned it, but she forgot to mention that her daughter's in our program in Women in Transition.
All right.
Okay. So she's gone through a lot. Okay. Working on things that she has to work on. Okay. She's got the best and the biggest supporter, which is mom. Okay. She got 3 lovely children that want her to see her succeed, so that they can be reunified again as family. Okay. Let me say that if it wasn't for Sarah, okay. When I interviewed Sarah and I heard the children and I heard the noise and I said, oh my goodness, how is Grandma going to make this happen? How is she going to be able to succeed? And I'm not just saying succeed to go get a job, no, to be able to raise the 3 grandchildren, to instill the values that we want them to be, to learn. She's been phenomenal. If you see the children and that transformation and those changes, it's amazing. You've gone above and beyond. Amazing. You've done God's work with those 3 children and with your daughter. Okay. She's a whole new person. Okay. She's got a lot of work ahead of her, but she's got you. Okay. She's got herself and those 3 beautiful children. So Sarah, I commend you. I applaud. I thank you. When we talked earlier last week, I said, oh my goodness, well, how's she going to do it? You've come a long way. You've done it. Your willingness, your determination, it shows. It's evident. So thank you. Alex Ortiz and Tracy Love, thank you. You guys are intelligent people. You're smarter than me. I'm happy I've met you both. I may not say this often to you two, as I don't say this often to my staff, and one of the advices of a good friend is say thank you more often, and thank them and appreciate them. So I appreciate both of you. Okay, 2 different mindsets, 2 different worlds, but I love both of them. Okay, and we've had many events, and I'm not gonna criticize any events. I'm just saying this was great. Thank you. I appreciate you guys putting this together. I appreciate my staff, Lisa, Lydia, coming through, buying the things, making sure everything was in place. That's real teamwork. Okay, that's real teamwork. So thank you. Last, we just started a new working relationship. Lisa Dobbins is here. And so Lisa and I have been going back and forth on emails. And so we finally got our salad bar, as you can see right over there. That's our salad bar. That is promoting healthy eating to our program at Natividad. And so I want to thank Lisa, who is the executive director of the Grower Shipper Association Foundation, who solicited donors to provide the salad bar to community homeless services. Thank you. Appreciate it. The following people. The funding for the salad bar was provided by the Rotary Club of Coral de la Tierra and the Hayford Family Foundation. Susan Marcella is not here.
She's over there.
Oh, you're here there. So let me introduce you to Susan Marcellus. She's a Rotary Club of Coral de Tierra past president. Thank you. Michael Hayford. Am I attending? Okay. I'd like to acknowledge him, Michael Hayford, and the Hayford Family Foundation for the funding of the salad bar. I hope to meet him soon. Also like to acknowledge Jim Bogart. Is he here?
He's
Jim,
right here.
Signing checks.
Jim Bogart, he's the president and general counsel of the Grower Shipper Association, who is here with us today. And so they work with the foundation, so thank you for being here, Jim. Appreciate, as everyone that I've mentioned, thank you all for making that happen. We hope to continue a relationship with you all, and hope that you can come out and see our programs. They're impacting, and they're wonderful with a wonderful staff. Last but not least, I want to end this with the story. So. My two boys were here a couple weeks ago, and we got a call, an emergency call. Something was happening at one of our sites, but I had to be there because the police were there. And so, the individual caused these things. But one of the things she asked was, "Am I going to get discharged from the program?" And I said, "Well, it all depends on you. If you don't change what you did, you will be discharged. But if you change it and you continue the program, because I do believe in second chances. I do believe in giving people opportunities to teach them, to help them, to guide them, to see a different light. And so it hasn't happened, thank goodness. And what I want to tell my staff, one last thing is, I do appreciate your commitment. It's not easy work. As many have come in and vented, it's not easy, but it's worth it. Okay, it's worth it. My son Abraham was asked several months ago, "What does your dad do for a living?" Well, everyone says their parents are lawyers, attorneys, they're police officers, or all these different things, and because I don't know, he works for the homeless. Did you at least put executive director? And my daughter goes, "Yeah, it's just like what Mom says. You may not be Brad Pitt or Tom Cruise, but you're Reyes Bonilla." So I love my work. I love what I do, and this couldn't happen. That we couldn't be successful unless it was because of all of you. Thank you.